it's not. Can you turn me on? Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The time has come, and we are going to start our next session, which is our regular evening City Council meeting. Welcome to all of you. It's nice to see you all. There is one change that we're making early on. It's right here. We're taking. We will. So we are going to make a move, but we have to do a few things before then. But I just want to give you a heads up. We're going to be making a move. So first we have the Pledge of Allegiance. Mayor Lamb, Councilmember Lamb, will you do that?
So I have the pledge.
Oh, you have the pledge.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for the invocation afterwards.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing. Who has the invocation?
Well, we don't have invocation tonight. We're going to just wing it right here. But I'd just like to say thank you all for being here. We just ask for a peaceful meeting, that we can get things accomplished tonight, move forward, and everyone goes out with smiles on our faces. Please be seated. Thank you. That's the best I could come up with on a short note.
Okay. City Clerk, may we have roll call, please?
Councilmember Carnevale.
I am here.
Councilmember Lamb.
Here.
Councilmember Gutierrez.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Gregory.
Here.
Mayor Ross.
Here. Thank you so much. We have agenda finalization, and in fact, we are going to move an item. It is the cannabis moratorium to this section. Please, City Manager, can you please?
Yes, Mayor, the recommendation, because there's a lot of interest in this particular item, and rather to make people wait through the whole meeting, is to move that up. So we'll do that now, item 5A. Anyone who wants to make comment on that particular item can do so after the staff presentation and any direction from the city attorney. And then those who have public comment on items unrelated to any of the agenda items will have that after that item.
Thank you so much, and I believe the staff report is all yours.
I'm Andrew Firestein, your Director of Community and Economic Development. So the item before you comes at the request of City Council from your last meeting. And as we get into this discussion, I do want to provide some context for the discussion. The city's cannabis regulations in their current form date back to 2017. That's when ordinances 800, 801, and 802 were adopted, putting into place the regulations for the licensing, the permitting, and the enforcement of cannabis land uses within the city. So that's in Title V for the licensing, Title IX for the zoning, and Title 13 for the enforcement. Within Title IX, we have the zoning and land use requirements that establish the conditional use process and really set out the zoning and the development standards for cannabis uses within the city. These have been amended several times since this was adopted in 2017, with the last amendment occurring in 2022. Although the substantive provisions of the code really remain as they were adopted back in 2017. We do have a fair number of operating businesses within the city. There are 47 operating cannabis businesses in the city with 67 licenses, and many of those are cultivation. We also have 17 non-operating businesses with 38 licenses. Those are businesses that have a conditional use permit, that have a license, but are not currently operating. The city has seen a large number of cannabis odor complaints. If we look at the data across 2024, we had about 38 complaints in the first 3 months of the year, which increased to over 900 over the balance of the year, including 501 in December 2024 alone. I'd share with council tonight that the number of complaints in January of 2025 has already exceeded the complaints that we received in December 2024. These complaints were reported across the city, with a large number of complaints occurring in the vicinity of Date Palm Drive and Ramon Road. The balance of those complaints were related to businesses off Perez Road, Kiley Road, Bankside Drive, and Sunair Plaza. In 2024, city staff has done a number of items in response to these cannabis complaints. If we look back at those actions and what work we have done as a city, we have engaged with cannabis enforcement staff across the Coachella Valley and the Department of Cannabis Control. We have evaluated the odor control regulations in place in these cities and in other cities in Southern California. We have also conducted staff training, improved our knowledge, improved our understanding of cannabis regulations and enforcement. We've also created a cannabis enforcement guide for code enforcement officers to take out into the field to use as a checklist to ascertain whether a business is in compliance with the city's regulations or not. We have initiated business inspections by code compliance staff in 2024. We have developed patrol routes for cannabis odor detection. We've also authorized overtime to send code officers out in the evening hours in response to complaints that there are periods of time of the day when these odor complaints are the strongest. We have also brought in the Cathedral City Police Department to bring in additional observations, additional data points, understanding that some of these complaints are in the late evening hours when we do not have staff on shift. The Cathedral City Police Department has responded by conducting additional patrols and providing additional data for code compliance staff. For specific businesses, we have also required additional cannabis odor mitigation. On this last point, this has been an ongoing discussion, and it has not been easy. We have not fully solved this problem. Although through the communication with this business, we have increased the frequency of their filtration changeouts, and when we realized that the odor filtration that was conditioned as part of their permits, that was conditioned as part of the project was insufficient, we leveraged the conditions of approval and the code requirements to require additional odor control. That business has installed a fogging system. They have conducted additional analysis to determine the efficiency of that fogging system, and they continue to make improvements to that business, and they continue to work on their odor mitigation. Despite that, we continue to receive complaints, and we continue to receive an increasing number of complaints. Which leads me to the interim moratorium that is before City Council tonight. The last council meeting, a request was made by council to bring forward a moratorium for discussion. This is supported by state law, where there is a finding of a current and immediate threat to the public health, safety, and welfare, where the approval of additional permits and entitlements would result in that threat. The council is authorized to adopt a moratorium as an urgency measure, meaning the council is suspending its ordinary processes to adopt legislation with a 4/5 vote. The initial moratorium is for a period of 45 days, which may be extended 2 times by the same vote and the same findings, for a total of a 2-year moratorium. That's what is authorized by state law. In your packet, you have a draft urgency ordinance, and I'd like to explain what is covered by this draft urgency ordinance and as well the exceptions under it. So if you think of this as an umbrella, the issuance of approvals for new licenses, new conditional use permits, permits for cannabis lounges, permits for cannabis events, permits that would result in modifications for an increase, intensification, or expansion in the cannabis-related use or operations. All of that is captured under this draft urgency ordinance. As well, this would not permit modifications to change the location of a cannabis business. There are exemptions drafted into this draft ordinance, and I do want to cover those to ensure that there is clarity on what it covers and what it does not cover. So the exemptions include modifications for the purpose of changing ownership where that does not result in an increase in operations. As well, it would still allow for permits or modifications that do not result in an increase in operations. An example of that, a minor tenant improvement permit, a permit for a bathroom, repair work. Permits, though, that would lead to an increase or an expansion of that operation would not be authorized under this moratorium. Permits or modifications that decrease the cannabis-related use or operations or square footage utilized for cannabis cultivation, manufacturing, processing, distribution, storage, sales, display, or similar cannabis-related activity, that would also qualify for an exemption. Renewals of an existing cannabis license, that would qualify for an exemption. And this last point is one that I want to spell out with some specific examples. So 4:30 p.m. this afternoon, there is a deadline in the ordinance where applications for new licenses, new conditional use permits, for those applications that were complete in the door with all the supporting documentation and all the fees, those would be continued to process, and we could approve those applications under the exemption that's built into the draft ordinance. But for any new license application, for any conditional use permit that comes in after that, they would be within the moratorium. They would be captured by the moratorium, and we could not issue an approval. We could continue processing, but we could not issue an approval for a new license application or a new conditional use permit received after 4:30 p.m. this afternoon. So to provide some examples, we did have a rush of applicants that had already initiated discussions, that had already initiated processes with the city, that had not completed some process. So if we look at Bankside Drive, Kings Garden, it went out of business. It's no longer there. But those properties, 36555 and 36425 Bankside, a new operator was looking at going into those spaces. There's a conditional use permit that allows cultivation, but that new operator needed a cannabis license through the city. They needed that local license. They have submitted before that 4:30 p.m. date this afternoon, and provided that that is a complete application and they've paid all the fees, they would be allowed to continue through that process, and we could issue approval of that local license because they made it in under that 4:30 p.m. deadline.
Excuse me, Andy, if the application is incorrect or incomplete, does that disqualify them, or do they have the chance to double bite at the apple?
It would disqualify them, and that would be subject to the moratorium. So just to give a couple more examples, 36650 Sun Air Plaza, there is an existing CUP. A business has been looking at going into that location. They have a cannabis license. They recently obtained a cannabis license, but they need to amend that CUP because that CUP is for cultivation, whereas they're looking at distribution. They need to amend the CUP. They got their application just under the deadline. If that is a complete application and they've paid all their fees, they're good. We can continue to process that. We can approve that based on the language that's in this ordinance. But if through that completeness check we determine that it's incomplete, they didn't pay their fees, if they missed a step, then that's going to fail that exemption, and they're going to be subject to the moratorium and held up by that moratorium.
If you don't mind, one more question since you're on this topic. So if they put their fees in, the permits in, and they go ahead and start building out, but not cultivating or growing, and then if the moratorium says, hey, now you need to do A, B, C, D, and they haven't done it, they will have to be required to do what the moratorium has now applied them to do. Correct?
There's nuances to that, and I think if the council adopts new legislation and adopts new requirements, we can discuss at that time whether that is retroactively applied to existing businesses. For instance, if you adopt new standards for cultivation, at that time that we're looking at that regulation, that's something that we could look at to say, does this apply when a cultivator is coming in for a renewal? Is this something that we're applying retroactively? I don't have that answer for you tonight, but what I do want to emphasize is sort of that line for the moratorium. 4:30 p.m. this afternoon, if a complete application was received by the city with all the supporting documentation and fees, they're in. We can continue processing that. We can approve that. We can approve subsequent permits to allow its build out. But for everything after that time, it's frozen and is subject to the moratorium.
Sorry to interrupt you. Thank you, Madam.
It's okay.
Andy,
So the last, The last example that I want to share, and I think the audience here is most interested in one particular business. So let's get it out of the way. C4 Industry. They have a CUP for build out of 2 buildings. They have building permits for the build out of that first building. They're actively under construction. They're still operating under a temporary certificate of occupancy. We have not issued that certificate of occupancy. They have a cannabis license. They have a conditional use permit for that first building. Based on the language of this draft ordinance, they can build out the remainder of that first building. They can seek that certificate of occupancy for that first building. Now, for that second building, they have a building permit in for the shell. They do not have a building permit in for the tenant improvement, for the finish of that building. They also do not have a cannabis license for that second building. So that second building would be subject to the moratorium that would be frozen. I want to make sure there's clarity on staff's interpretation, staff's read of the language in here, and that the council is hearing at least how staff approach this. We did hear concerns from the cannabis industry about the effect of this moratorium and how this would impact existing applications. And we approached the exemptions from that standpoint, understanding that there are businesses that are in the queue, there are businesses that are in process, and this last exemption, this last point, was really meant to create a process to allow those businesses that are already in process to continue. So continuing on with the presentation, wanted to share some next steps with City Council if this interim moratorium were adopted. So this interim moratorium is for a period of 45 days. We would need to return to City Council. We cannot solve this problem in 45 days. This is going to require additional research. This is going to require further review. This is going to require public engagement with the Cannabis Task Force, engagement with the Planning Commission, engagement with City Council. We want to hear from the industry. We want to hear from residents. And there may be changes that we're looking to make to the municipal code. This may be how certain land uses are permitted in the code. It may be the standards that we have for odor control. It may be the standard conditions of approval, but that is going to take time. So on February 26th, if this interim moratorium is adopted by council tonight, we would be back before the City Council with a more strategic plan on how we intend to undertake this work over a period of time. And I can't tell you what that is tonight, but in the next couple of weeks, we will put that together and we would bring that back to council on February 26th. Council would need to take further action on February 26th, and as I shared with you earlier, it would require the same findings, the same vote to extend that moratorium. But you could extend that moratorium on February 26th to grant the time needed in order to conduct those studies, to conduct that evaluation and then analysis on potential amendments to the Cathedral City Municipal Code. So with that, I'm going to close out staff's presentation. We are recommending approval of the urgency ordinance that is before the council tonight to allow for a 45-day initial moratorium, and we would be back on February 26th with some additional information for council's consideration. With that, I'll close out my presentation.
Thank you very much. Do we have questions?
Yes. Mayor, before we get to questions, I just want one addendum I want to add. This isn't written in stone.
Do your microphone.
I'll say just one addendum. While staff in my office are recommending the clause that the director mentioned about complete applications being filed by 4:30, you do have discretion to change that language. You aren't stuck with what we're recommending. We're recommending it in a sense of equity to people who have been in the process and expended some money on their permits. So you could allow people to continue to process but not issue permits. What's in your ordinance now is they get to process and get their permits at the end of the process. You could change that language to say, we'll allow you to continue to process, we're not going to issue permits during the length of the ordinance. That's much more restrictive. It would stop things that are in process now. We're not recommending that, but it is a choice that you have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. City Attorney. Back to questions, and the first one I have is from Councilmember Ernesto Gutierrez, please.
Thank you, Mayor. My first question is, now, since we're talking about what brought this problem is the facility on Ramon Road, C4. Now, that facility does have additional square footage that is not being utilized at this time, but they are licensed, correct?
They have space that they have yet to build out as part of the first phase. They are largely built out with the cultivation space. There is one area that they have not received a certificate of occupancy for, and the dispensary.
Are they going to be allowed to finish that process?
Under the construct of the ordinance that is before council tonight, they would be allowed to complete the process for that first building, yes.
Okay. Do you have the approximate square footage that we're talking about, additional square footage?
Offhand, no, but if you give me a moment, I can get that. They have one bay that has not been fully approved yet. The building is built. Really, we're talking about space within the building.
Interior space.
That's correct. So there is one bay, as I recall, that has not been released through a certificate of occupancy or a temporary certificate of occupancy, and the dispensary.
Now, a clarification. Now, since the additional building, the second building, has been in the works, are they going to be allowed to build it, but they will not get a license? Have they submitted all the necessary plans, permits? Where do we stand there?
So they have submitted a building permit for the shell alone, and they did that because they anticipate that it's going to take 6 months to design the interior of that second building. So they wanted to start with the shell. This was strategic on their part in terms of maintaining the mobilization of their construction crews that they have on site, shifting from that first building to the foundation and the shell of that second building. That was their plan. Under the draft ordinance that is presented to council tonight, they don't have a cannabis license for that second building. And because they do not have a cannabis license for that second building, we would not issue permits for that second building.
That's great to hear, because we will be bringing up to make sure that council hopefully agrees with me that a residential property will be treated the same as a resort property, which is the outdoor resort, is not treated the same. And also a condominium property will be treated the same as residential, and so will a mobile home park be treated as residential. So I'm glad to hear that we are able to talk about it in the
So
future.
this is under the moratorium, right? So under the moratorium, we would not issue permits for that second building. The challenge that we have, and this is something that we would need to get into in more depth as we continue this discussion, there is an approved CUP for that second building. They have a vested property right. They have an approved entitlement for that second building. So we would need to approach that in terms of how subsequent modifications to the code affect existing approved CUPs. And I don't have the answer for you tonight on that.
Yeah, we'd love to explore that to make sure that if there's anything that we have to change, we can bring it up to council, see how we feel about it.
And Councilmember Gutierrez, you raise a good point, because one of the things that will be part of the report you'll see on the 26th of the list of items that need to be explored in more detail is the way the zoning code treats residential neighborhoods vis-a-vis cannabis businesses. Because right now, the code requires a 250-foot, I think it is, setback from R1 and R2 neighborhoods, but specifically excludes resort residential and mobile home parks, some of the things you've mentioned. And that's one of the things that we're going to suggest to council in that report that needs to be reviewed during this moratorium period.
Thank you, City Manager. And later on, we'll have one final comment.
Okay.
Thank you.
And does anybody else have questions right now before we open it to the public? And we will circle back around for final questions. No? No, I'm not seeing anybody. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. City Clerk, we know that there are people waiting to speak. Could you please call each person that would like to speak in the order you have here on the screen?
Yes. Thank you, Mayor. So our first speaker is Mary Ellen Muir.
Good evening, Ms. Muir.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thanks for this opportunity. That was a lot to digest. What I originally was going to say, so I'll say it faster, then I'll go back to this. In a letter last week, Ryan Hunt of the City of Cathedral City stated, and I quote, "They," meaning C4, "installed a fogging system for better odor control. They responded by designing," and they, meaning C4, responded by designing and installing a system on 11/29, which was inspected on December 3rd. The latest data, this is again part of the quote, shows C4 industry reporting about 90% effectiveness. Now again, this is what we got a letter from the city saying 90% effectiveness. So you've probably all heard the expression, the fox guarding the hen house. So this is what's happening is you're letting C4 say it's 90% effective, because what type of knowledge do you have to be able to even see or hear or smell how effective this is? You continue to spread the propaganda that there is 90% effectiveness, and that is really not right. So I would say also regarding this, I'll go as long as I can, how did these places know about the deadline? Was this well in advance so C4 could get in and be before the deadline at 4:30 today? And there's an exemption if they decrease the percentage, if they decrease. So what percentage? If they decrease like 5%, do they not be within the moratorium? And again, I didn't have time to totally digest what was given. And then the conditional use permit, what he was talking about, that the new building already had that. So the building that isn't even built yet has a conditional use permit. That was one of the things. And again, does the moratorium wipe out? And I think this was asked by Mr. Gutierrez. Did the wipe out any prior scheduled rebuild? So thank you very much.
Thank you. City Clerk.
The next speaker is Kate Schwartz.
Good evening, Ms. Schwartz.
Good evening. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak for a moment. I moved to Cathedral City 2.5 years ago from North County, San Diego, where I served for 4 years on my regional health district board during the pandemic. So of course I have grave health concerns about the situation with C4, and I would like to ask that during the moratorium and thereafter that there be proper studies and assessments of the health impact of this type of exposure to residents right in the neighborhood. I'm also concerned that these facilities were not set off and zoned away from the residential areas across the 10, but instead are intermixed with all of our residential areas and our visitor camping areas. All right, thank you.
Thank you for your time. City Clerk, our next speaker, please.
The next speaker is Scott McDonald.
Good evening, Mr. McDonald.
Good evening. Nice to see everybody again. So just to clarify, we're going to be talking about the moratorium right now, and they're going to come back and talk about the open agenda. Is that what's happening? Are you expecting us to talk about everything? Just the moratorium right now? Or we want us to
This
talk?
public comment is on this item. I think it's closely related enough to what you wanted to speak to anyway. You can cover them now.
I
but
can
there
cover them
will be
both?
Yes.
Okay, I need my notes, if that's okay. I can't memorize anything anymore. A second here. Okay, so first of all, thank you for listening to us once again. With respect to the moratorium, I guess what my main concern here is that, and I think it's been relieved somewhat, is that the second building is on hold for now. So if that's the case, I think there's a huge sigh of relief from all of us that live in that community, not only in outdoor resorts, but at the high school, at the storage lot, at Stater Brothers, at Cardenas, all of the individual areas that are around us that are being affected by the strong odor of cannabis that's coming. As you move forward in this moratorium, what I would like to ask is that my understanding is if they decide to, or you decide to go and revoke the permit, that there's a public hearing for that purpose. And if that's the case, I would ask that City Council recognize that a lot of us are here for only 6 months of the year. And if it does get to become a public hearing for the revocation of the hearing, of the permit, that it's done sometime in November or December, 6 or 7 months from now, so that we have an opportunity to speak to it. When this plant went in the first time, it happened in September. There was a lot of things that went wrong in terms of the notification process, in terms of going into newspapers when none of us were there, and then having a hearing when none of us were here to speak to it. That's why there was only 3 or 4 people that showed up at that September 17th, 2017 meeting, I believe it was. So I'd ask if you do go ahead with a revocation hearing, if that's what you call it, that you please include us and consider that that time is when all of us are going to be here, not just a few. With respect to the city manager and the residential, resort residential buffer zone, I would appreciate if you could just let me know where that is in the ordinance, because I'm not able to find a differential definition between resort residential and residential. The buffer zone for residential, and what we are as a residential area, is 300 feet. And clearly, C4 is not 300 feet from us, it's maybe 15 or 20 feet. And that would go for the second building. It's too far away. So I'll just leave it at that. With respect to what I wanted to address in the open part, first of all, I wanted to thank Councillor Gutierrez for your comments 2 weeks ago. I think maybe your comments are the thing that was the impetus for what's happening here today. And we truly appreciate your leadership, all of you. This is a tough situation that we're facing here. We all went in there with wide eyes and optimism, thinking this would be something that would be wonderful, but we were fed a pack of lies by industry. And now the truth has come home to rest with us, and now we have to face that. So with that, I'd like to ask one key question here, and that's with respect
Mr.
to...
McDonald, I have
sorry?
regret to tell you, your time is up.
Oh, can I then just quickly just ask this, because I've asked 3 times on a request for information. I didn't know, like, if I did it secondly, if I came back for my next piece, would I not get another 3 minutes?
Not on the same evening.
Oh, you only get 3 minutes per evening?
That-
Okay, so I just asked this.
And we've got, a
I know.
room full of people.
So I
who
just
wanna
asked this
speak.
very quickly. I've asked 3 times on a request for information for the materials safety data sheets. What are the chemicals that are being utilized in C4? And my understanding is that the community development director is supposed to have access to that. So I'd like that to be released to us as soon as possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. So let's move to our next speaker, please.
The next speaker is Charles Lay.
Good evening, Mr. Lay.
Thank you. Thank you, Charles Leahy. I'm here to speak in favor of the motion, but we do live 900 feet south of the back door of the plant on Ramon Road. So this morning I had no smell when I stepped out. Very often there is. But when I got home at about 5 o'clock, the smell was there again. And then when we drove over here, the smell hit us real hard right in front of Stater Brothers. And then I smelled it as we're coming up the steps here into the building. I am an attorney from Michigan, and I did have the opportunity in November of giving continuing legal education through the International Municipal Lawyers Association. Subject happened to be zoning and setbacks. And I think we can see in hindsight that the proper setback between a marijuana facility and any of these marijuana grows should be about 1 mile. I'm just pulling that out of the air. We live about 1/5 of a mile. So mistakes are made. People didn't know back when these were permitted. Now we do. What can be done about it? And I want to endorse what you're doing here, and that is the moratorium. At first I looked at it and I thought, well, 45 days isn't long enough to accomplish much. But then I realized that that's probably a good thing because the council will have staff come back in, give an interim report, and then you do have built into this the ability to renew. So I think this is very good. I also looked at the exceptions that are in the ordinance, and I understand why probably they have to be there legally, but they are disappointing because it kind of indicates to the folks here that the hope that we might have had that something can be done about the existing operations, maybe it's going to be more elusive than we thought. I would say that when you do go through the process here, you do need to look at amending your ordinance, the big ordinance, 800 or whatever it was, and set a proper setback in the ordinance. I'm thinking it's a mile, but you'll come to that determination. You're kind of a test case here around the country. This is happening all over, I'm sure. And just to speak in favor of the Municipal Lawyers Association and so forth, it would be very helpful if you would take some national leadership. There's 24,000 different municipalities around the United States and many more in Canada. And if you come up with a good ordinance with the proper setback, that can be used as an example for other communities. So let's try to get something positive out of this experience and have Cathedral City demonstrate some national leadership on this issue.
Thank you, Mr. Leahy.
Thank you.
City Clerk, our next speaker, please.
The next speaker is Michelle Sharon Collier.
Good evening, Ms. Collier.
Good evening. My name is Michelle Sharon Collier, and I'm a resident at Desert Sands. I've lived in this city for 36 years. 30 years ago, I came before this council and asked that the council stop playing games with our lives to settle a situation that was taking place at the time. I'm here tonight, 30 years later, to echo the same sentiment in regard to item 5A. I've been emailing each of you on council along with the city manager and assistant city manager, as well as the manager at the C4 facility. Since September, I've sent at least 5 emails to you, and I grant that they are full of passion. Thank you, Mayor Ross and Councilmember Lamb, along with the assistant city manager who took the time to write me back or call me. Thank you, ladies. You gave me hope that someone would listen to us. Some years back, the late council member Greg Pettis came to Desert Sands community and talked with us about the possibility of the C4 facility coming to Ramon Road. It was known as something else at that time. We were assured there would be no effect on our community. State-of-the-art technology would be in place. We were lied to. The stench from the facility is affecting my health. I am an asthmatic. My husband and I can't escape the smell. Last night I tried to go out and see the planet alignment, and the stench was so overwhelming I couldn't step out the door. During the fall, we couldn't open our new windows. We couldn't use our evap cooler because that smell comes in the house. Enough is enough. Please, I beg of you, don't play games with our lives. Don't keep giving this business the chance to keep doing business until they can fully stop polluting and poisoning our air. Seriously cite them and shut them down. And heaven help us, don't approve any expansion. I am told it will take time to effect these changes, but that time is on our backs and in our lungs and in our quality of life. You're ruining it. Enough is enough. As a citizen and a taxpayer in this city, I plead with you, stop this business and take care of your citizens.
Thank you. City Clerk, the next speaker, please.
The next speaker is Bill Payne. The next speaker is Bill Payne.
Good evening, Mr. Payne.
Thank you for letting me speak. My name is Bill Payne. I'm a full-time resident of Campanile. That's northeast of the cannabis facility. The smell is just as bad over there as it is at the outdoor resorts. I just want you folks to realize that we're all in it, and we need to get a resolution for it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. City Clerk, the next speaker, please.
The next speaker is Janet Ream.
Good evening, Ms. Ream.
Good evening. This is my third time or fourth time, I don't remember which, but to address this. I think the city now is at least listening, and thanks to so many different people coming forward, we've got to stop this smell. No matter what, I don't know how we ever got categorized as resort limitations. But no matter what, the smell is there, and it is drastic. And we live kind of at the end of that building to where we sometimes get it worse than others do. And I know that it's important for the city to have revenue, and I know that it's a plus that, we were able to, to do that. But there are other businesses that could utilize that building. If they cannot get the smell to stop, then I plead with you to please stop the business and give us back our lives. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, the next speaker, please.
The next speaker is Kevin Spring.
Good evening, Mr. Spring.
Good evening. I come to you as a resident of Cathedral City, and uniquely, maybe I hope to not come off as I'm playing both sides of the coin here. I am in the cannabis industry. I'm not a cultivator, I'm a distributor. My business is in Palm Springs, but I have moved to Cathedral City, and in fact, I'm the one that Mr. Firestein said was in the queue, making it in by 4:30 for my CUP. Uniquely, I'm taking a building that was a cultivation, and now I'll be using my distribution business there, so it's not so odor intrusive. And to my fellow citizens and the council, does sound like it's a season for righting some wrongs. I'm a distributor. That puts me in touch with everybody in the industry, all cultivators, all brands, all manufacturers, all dispensaries, and this idea of putting such a large cultivation in the middle of residence, it's be a tough one to overcome. And the smell of cannabis has been an issue for decades. People trying to hide it to their best ability, very difficult. So I pray and trust that there will be no health issues just from the odor of the plant growing. But again, you've got some challenges ahead, and I wish everybody well on that. I do just want to say that, as Andrew Firestein mentioned, please consider that the moratorium not affect those that are in the queue. Of course, I'm happily coming to you from turning a cultivation into a distribution center, and I have run one since 2019 in Palm Springs with no odor control citations or complaints. It's just not an odor producing business, really. So I hope and trust I'll be fine in that endeavor. But again, if you can imagine, if we're in the queue, I've been working on this project for 8 months. We're nearing our opening day, and we already attained our licenses, city licenses, working on the state license, and we finalized our CUP application today before 4:30. So I ask that you'll consider that. I also ask that you'll focus this moratorium on cultivations, because they are the odor producing problem. Maybe manufacturers too. In my case, I'm a distributor and a non-storefront delivery service. So I just hope that you'll give that idea that people who have already started a project shouldn't be held up in the last moments. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time. Madam Clerk, the next speaker, please.
The next speaker is Paula Turner.
Good evening, Ms. Turner.
Hi, My name is Paula Turner, and I'm a principal in the commercial real estate firm Desert Pacific Properties. I am also a board member and treasurer of the Coachella Valley Cannabis Alliance Network. We call it CVCAN. CVCAN is a nonprofit, member-based organization that seeks to be a reasonable and productive voice for its members in the Coachella Valley and the state of California. We seek to accomplish our mission through innovative programming in the areas of education, advocacy, and networking. CVCAN emphasizes with the city's concern related to the odor related to the cannabis operations within its border. CVCAN generally supports the city's endeavors to address these concerns. A 45-day moratorium for cultivators and manufacturers seems to be a reasonable action to be taken at this time. We are, however, concerned with any extension of this action. Having said this, CVCAN respectfully requests that any moratorium imposed not be imposed on retail locations, lounges, distributors, and testing facilities. In our experience, properly engineered and operated retail locations, lounges, distributors, and testing facilities do not pose any odor issue and can be seen throughout the Coachella Valley. We respectfully request that such a position be considered both for the current 45-day moratorium as well as the connection with any other subsequent moratoriums. CVCAN is willing to participate in such public engagement as an asset and resource to the city, the task force, and planning commission. In regards to the 2 pending cannabis applications that were submitted by 4:30 deadline, I do represent the owners as well as the cannabis applicants. These two properties exceed 600 feet from any residential zones. My clients have contracts since last November, and the applicants have spent over $100,000 of non-refundable deposits. I support the moratorium to allow pending applications. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, do we have
Mayor,
any additional speakers?
I don't have any other speaker forums for this specific item. I do have one comment to make for the record pursuant to our policy. And that comment is from Christina Umhofer, and she expressed her concern with placing an emergency moratorium over all pending and future cannabis license applications. So that is for the record.
Thank you so very much. Council, may we?
There's one more.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, there's a gentleman there. Sorry.
I put in to speak, the city manager said that any of these older concerns should be probably heard during this time. Would that be okay if I could do that? My name is Richard Seiler.
Come on.
Okay, Mr. Seiler.
Good evening. It's Mr. Seifer.
Seiler,
Seiler.
S-I-L-E-R, Richard
Seiler.
Seiler.
Good evening, Mr.
Mayor,
Seiler.
council members, and the city manager. I just want to urge you guys to fully support this moratorium, and I would ask you to support it on those that have been already submitted as of today. I think when we're dealing with this odor, it's better to stop it ahead of time than to go try to figure out what you're going to do to fix the existing manufacturing and the cultivation businesses that are in existence. You don't have that answer yet, I don't believe. I don't think the folks that run those businesses even have that answer. One of the things I keep hearing is working on it. It's really frustrating. I came out of the Naval Nuclear Propulsion Program, and working on it was one of the 3 words I hated the worst. What are you guys doing, and what's the dates that it's going to get resolved? And I think that goes with the urgency that you're doing with the moratorium, but it also goes with the urgency to address the existing persistent odor that's out there. I think we need to stop saying we're working on it and start having defined dates and what we're going to do. And last is there's actions that's needed. We have existing ordinances in our city that says that we have to have an odor-free, that we can't have persistent odors crossing the boundaries of properties. We already have that there, and we're doing nothing to stop it, in my opinion. We're stopping maybe some new things now with this moratorium, which is good, but we need to look at it and say, if I need to, shut the business down. That's what we got to get to, if that's what it takes. We can't go on and on having the businesses saying, well, you know, I've got a ventilation fan that's not working right. I've got filters that need changed out. I've got, you know, and we say 90% of it. If you live anywhere around those areas, you know darn well it's not 90% reduction. Either that or those guys are suffocating inside the facility, because it is bad around that facility. Even the winds bring it to you, but also on calm days, it is bad around that facility. And I just ask, you guys got to get working on the existing problem as well as preventing future problems. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. City Clerk, are there any additional speakers?
Dean Stefkowski wanted to speak on this item.
I'm sorry, what was the name?
His name is Dean Stefkowski. I'm going to add it in right now.
I'm going to say good evening, Dean. I didn't quite.
Stefkowski.
Stefkowski.
Thank you for the opportunity. We know the moratorium, I think, is a great idea. Finally, we've opened a dialogue and we can speak. The only thing I'm worried about is for 45 more days, these are all my guinea pigs. They're going to be working out and enjoying the air at ORPS. They all live there. We need to have something done, or know that something's going to be done. If they're going to put the extra filter in, start putting the extra filters in now. Because the next 45 days, we're going to suffer like anything else. We did put some air monitors up, and I'm sure some of you have looked at it. If you haven't, it kind of mirrors some of the things that are happening around in our village, all around us. But on the calm days, we get the most obnoxious odors. When the wind starts blowing from the northwest, I can go over to a neighbor's house and know exactly where it's going to be now. And after you got 800 complaints, the moratorium should have started when you had 500. All I'm saying is thank you for the dialogue. There is an ordinance, we all know about it, 13.80.085, offensive odors and public nuisance. It's been happening forever. And I thank the fire, I thank the police. There's a lot of us that used to do all that same kind of work for coming in there, but please come between 12 and 4 o'clock in the morning when they're purging the system, because you're all asleep. And yes, I am your neighbor that's outside with a flashlight walking around at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning to see if it really is happening. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. City Clerk, do we have any additional speakers?
That is all, Mayor, that I have for this item.
Thank you so much. We're going to turn it back to council for any final questions from them. And first is Councilmember Gutierrez, please.
No, I already spoke.
Oh, I'm sorry. Councilmember Carnevale?
Oh, okay.
You're good to go.
Okay, then I'll make comments. I have no questions, but I'll make comments.
Comments.
All right. So we're good for comments?
Good
Thank
for
you,
comments.
Mayor. All right. I listened. I took notes. I don't remember all your names, but I got to say, Scott, when you mentioned, you know, some of y'all not here. I'm sorry. Let me get this in my face. When you're all not here, you know, things get done. It's not how we plan it. It's just sometimes it comes in the summertime. Everybody's gone. I'm even gone most of the time. But possibly we can talk to the city manager, city attorney. We can do things by Zoom. You guys can just keep following us on cathedralcity.gov, and you'll see what's happening every council meeting all through the summers. So we could possibly do a Zoom. We've done them in the past during COVID. We've all done that. So I like that idea quite a bit. Charles, a good point. You know, and then let me check my other notice. And then as far as requesting, Paula requesting just looking at cultivation and no other cannabis industry, I think that's, I can't agree with that. I think if we're going to redo our ordinances, they haven't been done since 2017. Now's the time to redo them all, just not one, everyone, whether it's distribution, whether it's cannabis, whether it's dispensary, we have to take everything into consideration. So, and then between 12 and 4, Dean, give me a call. Let me know. I'm always up doing something, walking around too. Let me know. Everybody's got my number. But I just want to say one thing, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart. I've been on this council for 10 plus years, and I can even speak for this council. The quality of life is the most important thing I think this council believes in. We took on short-term vacation rentals, big business, millionaires, deep pockets, and we fought them here. A little city of 56,000 people, we fought them and won. We had residents, just like you, we had just as many residents with these STVRs as we have with this cannabis issue. And they were saying, hey, we're never going to beat these guys. And I think I heard somebody say on the news that their opinion was we're not going to do anything about it because we get tax money. Yeah, we love tax money. That's how we make our money. But the quality of life, we lost millions of dollars on STVRs. That didn't bother us. It was messing up with our neighborhoods. It was turning our neighborhoods into businesses. This council right here, that you're looking at, we got rid of them. So don't think we're going to sit on our hands with this too. Yeah, we like tax money. CB is going to see forward bringing us in tax money. But that's not important to us. What is important is the quality of life for you all. And I just want you to let you know that I'm disappointed in myself for disappointing you. But this is going to go away. We'll get it down to 0, or there'll be action to be taken. So with that being said, Madam Mayor, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilmember.
So thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councilmember Carnevale. I totally concur with what you're saying, and part of it, I appreciate you bringing up the short-term vacation rental issue because there was similar feelings, sentiment from the public at that time that, again, because of tax revenue, that we weren't willing to do anything about it. And there were members that were coming in telling us we couldn't do anything about it because of tax revenue. And at that time, this council said the quality of life of the people here in Cathedral City is not for sale. And I think I could at least speak for me, and I know I have colleagues here that feel exactly the same way, if not everyone feels the same way with this issue. So I thank the council for their support in my request that we put this on the agenda tonight. I thank the citizens for bringing this to us. I thank staff for coming up with a balanced but firm first step, and this will just be the first step, but I also concur that we do need to address all of our issues because even for example, as our rules sit now, you have many of you out here have a cultivator near you. As they sit right now, someone could open up a lounge near you, a smoking lounge near you, just as close because it's classified as in resort residential. So it needs to be fixed for dispensaries, lounges, for everyone that is in the process. But I do think the approach that staff took on this is reasonable, and so I will be supporting the recommendation from staff. And I would ask that the council give the needs of the residents top priority as we go through this entire process. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Lamb?
I just wanted to say I certainly applaud all your efforts and willingness to be here and explain yourself so thoroughly and passionately and positively. I was not at the last meeting, but I did watch all the proceedings on the archives, and I too support the resolution. I was not here. I wasn't being cavalier. I had a heart attack. January 2nd, on January 1st, my husband and I were hiking up with our dogs, saying, happy 2025, and the next day I was at Eisenhower. But I am not cavalier about not responding to you, and you will get my support for this measure, and I really want to thank the staff for the detail that they have put into this and the thoroughness with which they have given a timeline for proceeding with all that needs to be done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. None of us ran for office to make you mad. We ran for office because we cared about the citizens of Cathedral City. Are actions always perfect? Mostly, but not always. We do understand there's a problem. We're all working towards finding a solution that is both legal and effective. So stick with us. We really are trying, I promise. And we look forward to seeing you at the next meeting. You're more than welcome to stay on, but now we get into the other business of the city. Oh, and I'm sorry. And Mr. Gutierrez now would like to share something. I missed him before. I'm sorry.
Well, first I want to say thank you for all of you to attend every single meeting for the last 2 months. I know you take a lot of time out of your day to actually come and let us know how you feel. And it's funny to hear and to see all of you and to hear what the comments of Councilmember Carnevale and also Mayor Pro Tem Gregory. When you come here and we see all of you telling us how you feel and how the city should be ran and what your issues are, it reminds me, just like they said, what happened during short-term vacation rentals. They believed nobody was going to do anything about it. They believed nobody listened to you. Guess what? We are listening to you. And we are going to do something about it. And one thing that definitely I will not do is to put the cannabis revenue in front of the quality of life, the health, and your rights to enjoy your property.
Thank you so much. Do we have a motion to approve staff's recommendation?
Mayor, I move approval of the emergency ordinance as presented by staff.
I'll second.
Thank you.
We have a
We're waiting to take a vote.
The motion carries all ayes.
And Mayor, if I could summarize before we move on, the report that will come to you on the 26th, which will outline the topics that need to be reviewed in more depth. Many of them were the things that I heard mentioned not only tonight but in previous ones, such as looking at the zoning code and the way it defines resort residential neighborhoods versus other neighborhoods, looking at the zoning districts where businesses are allowed. I think there's probably room for some modifications there. Looking at the code itself in terms of the conditions of approval and what type of odor control systems we require, looking at what other cities are doing in terms of separate permits for odor control systems and things like that. So it'll be a comprehensive list of items that are going to require some study. And in the meantime, and I know they hate the word we're working with, in the meantime, our commitment is to continue to evaluate. We have code officers and police officers out there every night they keep a log of their findings so that we have adequate information so that next steps can be determined based on hard data. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And for those who are not going to stay for the rest of the meeting, we look forward to seeing you again. Yes.
Nobody's listening, but time's sake. It's an interim urgency ordinance of the City Council of the City of Cathedral City, California, adopting and imposing a temporary moratorium on the approval of licenses, permits, approvals, or other entitlements that use, including any modification thereof, for cannabis businesses.
Did she finish? I believe so. Mark just left.
Everyone left. So
And,
5 minute
and
break.
Ray's left.
I guess,
Aaron's left,
I guess if
so make it a short one. No, I'm good. Madam Clerk? We're taking a 5-minute break. I don't have anybody left here.
I wasn't able to hear you.
No. No, not on the microphone, though.
Testing, 1, 2, 3, testing.
A little bit. Can you turn it up? Do you have a volume button?
Testing, 1, 2, 3,
That's better?
testing. But it's like full blown.
Yeah, but that's not very loud. Yeah, well, if 3 of them left, yes. It's 5 minutes, just a little 5-minute break. Just a little 5-minute break, you guys. Yep.
Are we not having open forum, or will we? I'm sorry, I'm so confused. Yes. Because the verbiage wasn't quite clear enough.
Yes, we'll have general public comment.
Well, we did do the cannabis, and we were ignored, we didn't get called. Oh. They weren't in.
I mean,
did fill it out.
There.
Oh. Fill them out.
Wait, hold on.
But they didn't identify the item number, so it's under general public comment.
How do we know what item number? May I explain why?
There's an agenda out.
No, because you moved it forward.
Right.
But when we're out there, we're making a general public comment. You brought 5A up.
We're still doing general public comment. That's the next
But we would have
item.
talked on 5A if we knew that we had to talk about our.
You don't have to talk about cannabis issue for 5A. The moratorium was the item. So if you want to talk about cannabis just in general, that's public comment. Yes, and you have every opportunity to do that.
Sorry.
No, see, it was very.
You should have told Rocky up here.
Is it going to be long?
No, there's.
Testing, 1, 2, 3, testing.
We're going to have to start baking you guys muffins.
Yeah, that'd be better than the bags they have out there.
I'm on you.
Clerk to read.
Hi. Good.
Oh, yeah, but I didn't have.
Nice to meet you. I think I met you at the ladies' luncheon.
Vacation.
Oh, did you?
Going back to the beginning. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Thanks. Appreciate it. No, no.
Tracy, are you ready? So you still need to read it, right?
Right, so we're coming back to agenda finalization.
Make it official, why don't you start by just having her read it, and then we'll go.
Okay. Use your Nancy Ross voice.
Sit right here.
Good. I know. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to resume our meeting. Madam Clerk? Who's having a little bit of speaker trouble, but she's going to get there.
I'm going to go ahead and read the title of the ordinance again where it can be heard for the record. This is the ordinance that was approved was an interim urgency ordinance of the City Council of the City of Cathedral City, California, adopting and imposing a temporary moratorium on the approval of licenses, permits, approvals, or other entitlements for use, including any modification thereof for cannabis businesses. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you so very much. And will you just read for us the
Statement of participation.
statement of participation for public comments? Thank you.
I will be happy to do that. Public comment is the opportunity for members of the public to comment on items that are within the City Council's jurisdiction but not on the agenda. Because of restrictions contained in California law, the City Council may not discuss or act on any item not on the agenda, but may briefly respond to statements made or ask a question for clarification. The mayor may also request a brief response from staff to questions raised during public comment or request that a matter be agendized for a future meeting. Public comment will be limited to 3 minutes. If you are a member of the public and you wish to address the City Council, please complete a request to speak form available at the entrance and submit it to the city clerk. You will be called upon at the appropriate time. If you have materials or other items to present to the members of the City Council, please do not approach them. All materials shall be presented to the city clerk for distribution. I do have a few members that have submitted a request to speak form. The first speaker is Pat Keys.
Good evening, Ms. Keats.
Esteemed Mayor and council members, my name is Pat Keyes.
Oh, Keyes, I'm so sorry.
And I'm 82 years old, and I own 2 properties and 2 RVs at outdoor resorts, and I have been there since 1995, and I pay my state and local taxes as well. I'm here tonight because my enjoyment if this place has just gone. I can no longer go outside. The smell comes into my unit. I have a persistent cough and headaches while I'm at outdoor resort, and this has been going on for months now. I've also heard of other people in my immediate neighborhood who are saying the same thing, that they have a persistent headache. Basically, this is the quality of life. I mean, I no longer can enjoy my life in retirement due to this cannabis stuff that's in the air. I don't know, I've never in 30 some odd years of being there have experienced this. And this coughing and headache is just terrible. Basically, this experience is a heartbreaking ordeal for my retirement. I mean, I can't even go outside. And the seeping into the air. My husband and I have been sleeping at home in Palm Desert recently because we can't, the smell is even in all the way into our unit. I mean, it's terrible. So in closing, I would ask you, would you want your mother or grandmother to experience this heartbreaking experience in their retirement? You know, think about it. Do something about it. It shouldn't be happening to us. You know, people who have spent their life and looking for a retirement and now we just can't even have it. You know, it's wrong. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Erie Knox.
Long time no see.
Hi.
Good evening.
Nice to see you all. It's really nice to see democracy in action tonight, and I just want to thank all of you for hearing all the voices that spoke tonight. I'm here to talk to you about the Agnes Pelton Cottage. I'm forming a committee to do a feasibility committee about purchasing the cottage to establish a permanent museum at the cottage here in Cathedral City, and I wanted to invite you all to this process. What we'll be doing is we'll be meeting 4 times over the next year to find out how much this process would cost, if we think we can raise it, and then to, if we decide to pursue it, establish a board and a nonprofit organization to carry it forward. I've invited members of the Public Arts Commission. I'm going to speak to the Planning Commission next week and invite members from there. I've spoken to the city managers and invited them as well. I would like to invite you as well, if you're able, to come and help shed some light on what this process could look like. And that's pretty much all I have to say.
What was your name again? I didn't catch your name.
Erie Knox.
Erin, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ari.
Yeah, thank you so much.
The next speaker is Christine Anderson.
Good evening, Ms. Anderson.
Hi, good evening. Christine Anderson. I've been here every meeting but last since September, and I actually don't feel like we are being heard. I know we're doing things about permits and things like that. You yourself, I'm sorry, the mayor at the time, I think it was Carnival, you said you wouldn't want to live there. You said you didn't want to live where we are September, October. You would not want to live there, is what your words were. It's hard to live there. We'll go back if you wish. I want to share a letter I shared with you last week about, or 2 weeks ago, about from your own place here that said they have to stay and they would have to deal with the leaks immediately to get to zero, no smell. It's not leaking. They're putting that air out there. So they're not within their code of, your compliance code of conduct. If I grew weeds 6 feet tall, you'd be over at my house every day getting my weeds hacked down. If I had cars out there that are old and decrepit, you'd make sure they weren't unsightly seen for everybody else. You would be making sure I was following what I'd have to do to stay within Cathedral City. I received a letter in 2019 from Sonova prior to their building, and I was quite concerned because I have an allergy to hemp, which is kind of unusual, and it's only to the creams, supposedly, but the odor is affecting me. And I got back, "Hi, Christine. I appreciate your question regarding smell mitigation. It is clearly an issue that industry has wrestled with to date, and sometimes that we have taken very seriously in our design of the facility, given the proximity to the residential development." I'm still surprised you allowed them to build next door to us. "We are using active carbon filters to remove smells from our air before it leaves the buildings. The glasshouse portion of the facility where the plants grow is made of sealed growing bays that have no outside air exchange." I've seen it. I'm sure you have or smelt it too. "These growing bays are slightly positive pressures next to the slightly negative pressure transport corridors located along the north wall of the growing bays. Air from growing bays that enter the transport corridor is passed through active carbon scrubbers that remove the smell before it is expelled from the building." I'm calling that, you know what it is. The process of The processed portion of the facility where we harvest and cure the plants also has active carbon scrubbers in several locations to remove the smell from the air before it is expelled from the building. They're not doing any of that. I know that it's a different person, but you guys agreed for that to be grown next door to us and processed. So with all of our controls we have built into the facilities, we're confident that the odors will be controlled and smells, if any, are insignificant.
I'm so sorry, your time
Okay,
is up, but I
that's
do
okay.
appreciate your
So,
time. Thanks, Kevin. City Clerk, are there any additional speakers?
The next speaker is Debbie Price. No Debbie Price? No? Then the next speaker is Dorian Whitney.
Good evening, Mr. Whitney.
Good evening, everyone, and I just wanted to say I really wish if only we listened to the concerns of other neighborhoods the same way you did these people tonight. The one around the new Food for Less gas station when they showed up in overwhelming support against it. I wonder if you even watched the Planning Commission meeting that declined it. Seeing it almost finished being built now, I just have to say what a shame it is that we pushed that project through, all for 2 or 3 job positions being added to our city. Just 3. We are now poisoning that neighborhood with things that are way worse than cannabis smells, things that actually scientifically cause coughs and headaches. Way worse and way more life-threatening. The approval of that gas station really is a stain in our city as we ignored all those residents' concerns and the environment. For those of you who approved it, I hope you realize you did let an entire neighborhood down. We have way too many gas stations, and an extra one did not help our quality of life. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Scott McDonald.
Good evening, Mr. McDonald.
I gave you the condensed version before, so I misunderstood what the rules were. So I'll just get right to the point here. And today I have one question, and it pertains to chemicals and substances used by Cat City Cannabis. In the full staff report, and if you haven't read it, it's 377 pages long. I'd recommend that you read it, as well as the air quality impact analysis. I've read that as well. In any event, the full staff report identified 50 different substances, but what exactly are these substances? Multiple requests have been made for material safety data sheets, yet no information has been provided. Why is this the case? According to Section 3.45, the Hazardous Materials Management Plan is subject to review and approval by the Community Development Director. As residents, we have the right to know what we are being exposed to daily. What substances are being released by this facility and are causing symptoms like burning and itchy eyes, congestion, breathing difficulties, nosebleeds, nausea. My neighbor, one behind me, is on a CPAP machine. It fills up with the odor of marijuana. A 93-year-old lady that was beside me, her filter for her oxygen, she's lived in their community for years, it's being filled. I'm not sure exactly what's going on with it, but anyway, her son told me to mention that to you. So if the city does not currently have this information on the MSD sheets, will it compel Cat City Cannabis to make it public? If they refuse, what are they hiding? This lack of transparency raises serious questions about whether Cat City is complying with its conditional use permit. And as I mentioned, the community director, I believe, I don't want to use your title incorrectly, but you're supposed to have, I believe if that's you, you're supposed to have that plan, and that plan, I requested it and it hasn't forthcoming. So I appreciate getting that, and thank you very much for your time once again.
Thank you for your words.
I was going to try Debbie Price one more time. No, she left? Okay, so we'll remove her from the list. That is all I have for forms to request to speak, but I do have a couple comments for the record that I will put into the record pursuant to our policy. And the first one is from David Coslow, and he would like the City Council to agendize an item for discussion regarding term limits for City Council members, and he noted that he made the same request at the January 8th meeting. And the next one for the record is Marilyn Sabins, and she expressed her concern with the cannabis odor that she experiences at Outdoor Resort Palm Springs and the effects it is having on the residents. And the last one that I have for the record is, I only have a first name of Dale, and he expressed his concern with the cannabis odor at Outdoor Resort Palm Springs and the effects of it, and would like some action taken. And that is all for the public comment.
Thank you very much. We're moving on to council reports. Mr. Gregory, will you go first, please?
I will. Thank you. Thank you so much, Mayor.
And thank you to all of you folks.
So our last meeting was just 2 weeks ago on January 8th. At that time, we were about halfway through the Palm Springs International Film Festival. That continued through the following weekend, and as many of my peers did and staff, I did take in some more films. I did see a total of 5 films, including one at the Mary Pickford, which was very well attended. So I know that we heard a little bit about that from Ryan Hunt in our study session about the film festival. And yes, it was a great event. And it seemed like, at least the times that I was around, that the Mary Pickford was quite busy. And the film that I saw, I think, they were like checking the empty seats and letting people in at the end. So, I mean, if it was the same as at the other showings, they were pretty full during most of those showings. So I'm glad that the city participates and that Mary Pickford is one of the hosts to that. It's good exposure for our city and for our downtown. And then I did, the next week, I did attend an orientation for Visit Greater Palm Springs. I'm starting a term as the alternate there, so I know they're having orientations for people that are new to that board. And then, although I probably will never have to go because the mayor is pretty faithful about attending those things, but just in case, I'm ready.
You never know when I'll break my leg.
You never know. And then also, speaking of the mayor, I did attend a Zoom meeting with the mayor and city staff, city management, with the Schuster Advisory Group, going over their review of how they propose a better way to invest our OPEB money. And so that'll be something that'll be coming to the council, but they wanted to get some initial comments and reviews, so I was happy to be able to participate in that with the mayor. And upcoming, we do have our council goal-setting workshop this Saturday. So if you want to know how the city, and want some input into how the city sets goals for the next year, and you have nothing else to do, that we will have a meeting. It is a lengthy meeting because this isn't something that we short shrift. It's a number of presentations and discussions, but it will be this Saturday starting at 8 o'clock here at City Hall in the study session room, and usually wraps up by about 3 o'clock. So as you can see, it's a long meeting. I'm not sure if that meeting recorded and shown. Usually it's not, because it's a workshop and not an actual regular meeting. And of course, it's not the kind of meeting where we have public comments on non-agenda items or anything like that. It's specifically a workshop, but it is a golden opportunity to kind of hear where we're going, and listen to the input, and at some point have some input into what we're looking for next year. And then, of course, our next regular meeting will be on the second Wednesday of February, which is February 12th. So make sure you have that on your calendar. And after that, starting the Wednesday after that, we, as was kind of outlined in the budget discussion that was had at the study session, if you missed it, but there's many things going on as far as determining the next budget that we do, the biennial budget process. And so starting the Wednesday after the 12th, which would be the 19th, that would be the first of what we call our budget review workshops. And what we usually do is on the Wednesdays that we don't have council meetings starting on the 19th, we'll have a special meeting. Usually it starts at 2 o'clock and we try to end it by about 4 o'clock. And we will be going department by department and going through in more detail what the requests are, what they need as far as resources to be able to accomplish the goals of the city. And so that will be starting on the 19th. I think the city management is up first to set a good example for all the other departments of how it should go. So that will be on the 19th, and then there'll be a schedule the Wednesdays where there aren't council meetings until we get completely finished, which I think brings us into early May, if I'm not mistaken. So there'll be plenty of opportunities to hear about your favorite department. So if you need more information from that, of course, you can speak to the city management or anybody at the city, and they'll be sure and let you know what day your favorite department is scheduled to be heard. And with that, I'll conclude my comments, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilmember. Councilmember Gutierrez, will you share with us?
Thank you, Mayor. Since we last met, I attended a CVAC Conservation Commission meeting in which the commission approved the purchase of 148 acres in the city of Desert Hot Springs off of Indian Avenue and Mission Lakes Boulevard for the price of $1.78 million. This property will be conserved forever for our future and our kids. I also met with a resident regarding a very serious code enforcement issue. We're going to be working on it, investigating to see what happened. And I also heard from a resident in the Dream Homes area, which had a huge issue, has been having a huge issue, in which gardeners go out there and they're always doing illegal dumping. I read the email, and just before I did anything, contacted anyone in staff, I received a second email from the same neighbor, from the same constituent, in which he was thanking the city and specifically the Public Works Department for being so proactive, and they were there so quick to clean up the area. And he was so thankful. He wanted to make sure that Public Works Department and staff was acknowledged, and what a great job they're doing. And I also heard from a resident who was fined and was sued for legal fees. And I mentioned to him that we'll talk to our city manager to see if there's anything we can do about it. But I spoke with this resident several times. He was not willing to go along with code enforcement, what he needed to do. And unfortunately, he received a hefty fine. And of course, I also heard from a couple of residents regarding the odor smell, which we just talked about. I'm not going to go into it. And I met with our city manager and our assistant city manager to go over tonight's agenda. And this coming Friday, I will be attending a meeting with the Parks and Community Events Commission, in which they update myself and I believe Councilmember or Mayor Pro Tem Gregory as well. So we'll be having a meeting. And as mentioned earlier, we'll be hosting or having another meeting Saturday, a goal-setting meeting. If you wish to come, the details were already mentioned by Mayor Pro Tem Gregory. And that concludes my report, Mayor.
Thank you so much, Councilmember. Councilmember Lamb?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mayor. I did attend the Journalism Hall of Fame award luncheon, and it was just a wonderful event. Although I'm not a journalist, I do it in honor of Steve Veriker, who was our Parks and Community Events Commissioner for a time. He was a radio person and a dear friend. But they recognized Olivia Sandusky, and Olivia was named Journalist of the Year. And I'm so impressed with the work she has done. I had the opportunity, she interviewed me when I was first running for election in 2019, and she was gracious and lovely, and she continues to tell the story of not only Cathedral City, but our entire valley, and she shares it with the county, the state, and gets national attention. So I was really honored to be there and recognize her. Our next emergency preparedness event is February 1st, which is on a Saturday. It's going to be 11 a.m. And Cathedral City Library, and I want to thank Ryan and Adam for publicizing it, and hopefully you take advantage of that. I'm from the San Fernando Valley, and Pacific Palisades is very, very close. And my family has lots of friends and who have suffered from that. So for all of us, we are in earthquake country, and it's an opportunity to hear from our wonderful Cathedral City Fire Department and the Coachella Valley Disaster Preparedness Network, what we can do if we have to just get out quickly, because that is the operative word. And I wanted to recognize that we lost Jimmy Carter, a great president, his character and judgment was amazing. And in terms of judgment, he was the one who put solar panels on the White House because he said in 1976 that's going to be the biggest global commitment we need to make to save the earth. That was not a popular topic, and we went for worrying about our interest rates on our houses instead. So there you go. But I have a story about Jimmy Carter. I had a chance to go to Decatur, Georgia on another conference in 2010, and I had one day left before my flight left and the conference was over, and I toured the Jimmy Carter Library. And I was so amazed at the breadth and scope of the philanthropic contributions he made through the Carter Center. So I spent the whole day there. I wandered out of the complex and got lost in downtown. And I'm lost everywhere. So I didn't know where I was. And this is way before Uber, and I called a cab. And the cab driver picked me up. And it was about 7 minutes to arrive back at my destination. I hadn't wandered very far. But he was from Liberia, and he talked about the impressive work the Carters did in promoting free and fair elections in Liberia. And I teared up, and I just wanted to remember that because it was such an amazing thing. It was just one of those experiences that I'll remember forever. And the second experience that I'll remember forever is the heart attack that I mentioned at the earlier session. It was January 2nd, and this is a public service announcement really for women, because I had been suffering from what I thought was indigestion, and I had made an appointment to see my family doctor. I got out of the shower in preparation for that appointment, and I went ice cold and shaky, anyway, I actually thought, this is my brain, I actually thought I was going to get in the car and drive to the doctor's appointment and she could help me. And I sat down in the bed. I didn't recover, I didn't rally, and I sat down on the couch and called 911. And within minutes, our wonderful Cathedral City Fire Department, I had opened the door, they pushed it open and they said, "Mrs. Lamb, is it you?" And I said, "Yes." And they saved my life. And I'd like to recognize the people the crew that was there that day. There isn't a plaque, there isn't a set of flowers, there's nothing that could rival the contributions they made to me. Their calm, their composure, their professionalism really is heralded. So I would like to read their names. First, ambulance operator EMT Aaron Cruz, firefighter paramedic Bernardo Mora, Captain Jim Taylor, fire engineer Brody Trayer, and firefighter Juan Ramirez. Thank you so much. That concludes my comments.
Thank you so much. Councilmember?
Thank you. Councilmember Lamb, that's a great story on Carter, but your story with the Cathedral City Fire Department really beat it to heck. But I got to tell you, this whole council was so worried about you, prayed for you, and it's so good to have you back, because, you know, it's ironic you had a heart attack, because you got the most beautiful heart out of probably all of us here. She's 110 pounds of greatness right there, and thank you. No, you're awesome. So we're just glad that you're healthy. Stay healthy, okay? Yeah, okay, you bet. Well, let's see. I attended via Zoom the CCFD accreditation finding presented with Chief Contreras. I'd like to make a shout out to a new, wonderful, beautiful new store that has opened here in Cathedral City. It's called Cat City Liquor Store on the corner of Highway 111 and Cathedral Canyon. I think we're going to have some kind of event there. Council, look for Ryan to send you some things to go and do like a small ribbon cutting. But I got to tell you, this is the most beautiful store in Cathedral City. I don't know if anybody's ever seen it. I mean, maybe Coachella Valley. When you walk in there, it looks like the Bellagio. Have you been in there? Yeah, it is awesome. And then I got to go to another shout out. I haven't been there yet. It's that new Korean chicken restaurant they opened up across from Trader Joe's, and I don't know if the chicken comes from Korea, but it sounds delicious anyway,
We hope not. That's a long trip.
It's a long way to fly or walk. But and I got to thank Art Gregory for bringing the attention to the Cat City liquor store. I met on the 5th. I met with David Bernard, Charlie McClinton, and Assistant City Manager to discuss findings, what C4 is doing, updated on the filtration equipment they're installing. David shared a lot of information and his determination to correct any odor escaping. And also I speak with David pretty much every other day when I get a concern, or if I drive by there, and like today I went by there 2 times a day. I didn't smell anything around it until I got in front of the building. Then I kind of smelt it. It was odd, but he was shared some things with me that, OSHA has inspected his business, make sure employees are healthy. Air quality control's been out there. So I do believe he's working as hard as he can to in this situation. And then yesterday I met with Ed Vetrano and Ed, President David from Outdoor Resort, along with Charlie and Andy. We met. David and Ed gave us some questions that they were all answered. David riddled Andrew with questions, the city manager and myself with good questions, and they were asked and answered. And I believe we have a meeting Monday morning at 10 o'clock here at Cathedral City with a few homeowners at Outdoor Resorts, and I hope we can answer any of their questions, no holds barred. And of course, as Councilmember Gregory mentioned, we're having our goal setting on Saturday. We're looking forward to that. That's when we get a lot of things done. Invite the public if you want to go, and give us some ideas on positive growth in Cathedral City. That's all I have, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Bob and I attended a Cactus Club event at the beautiful home in Palm Springs of Chuck Leachman and Mickey Fickelson. The Cactus Club is a charitable arm of the Senior Center, and the night was full of fun, friends, and camaraderie. It was also the National Day of Recognition for our 39th President, Jimmy Carter, and additionally, I had a meeting with our city manager. On the 14th, I had a long Zoom with Sunline Transit where we discussed several issues. One of those we discussed tonight in our earlier session. It's pretty exciting. I worked in my office that afternoon, and that evening attended the Coachella Valley Mosquito and Vector Control meeting in Indio. I am your representative on that commission. On the 15th, I had another meeting with our city manager, as well as starting my day off with a meeting with Karen Riley at the Scrap Gallery to discuss things we can work on together this year. The Mayor Pro Tem and I met with the Schuster Group, and he told you a bit about that. I met with a resident and friend at Hot Lips Coffee on Cathedral Canyon and 111. And this part just amazed me ever so slightly. Kind of a small coffee shop. I think there's probably 6 booths and 5 or 6 tables. Every booth and table was taken, middle of the day. That's the kind of business we'd like to see really thrive here. I was glad to see it. The coffee was also pretty darn good. On the 17th, I was honored to be tossing, no, that's not me. That's not me. Oh, yes, I was practicing tossing the first pitch for the Mary Nutter softball tournament. I met with him. He was not a pitching coach, and he has been offering to help me. I worked the rest of the day in my office. On the 18th, I attended an author reading at the Senior Center. The author, Ernie Lenz, lives in Cathedral City, and his book was about his time fighting in World War II. The center hopes to have regular author readings, and this was a great one. We visited an art gallery that was getting ready for this weekend's open studio tour at Perez and the Cathedral City Library. On the 19th, I spent the day along with many friends at the American Express PGA Gold Tournament. Shout out. Maybe he's gone to sleep on us there. It's sponsored by Burtec, and we had a really good time. On the 21st, I had a Sunline agenda review, met with Charlie and Ann for our weekly meeting, attended a doctor's appointment with my husband, and met with a realtor about the condition of sales in Cathedral City. Today, I led Sunline in their board meeting, as well as attended finance and audit, board operations, taxi committee, and a closed session that the full board attended as well. Whew, I'm here and I'm still awake. Thank you. That concludes my comments. I'm going to throw them up here. Oh, no, that's like Ms. Pelton. So moving on, can we have the city clerk read the consent agenda items, please?
Yes. Item number 3A is to waive full reading of ordinances on agenda. Item number 3B is the approval of the January 8, 2025 study session and regular city council meeting minutes. Item number 3C is the check demand for December 2024. Item number 3D is to approve the proposed updates to the executive, administrative, and professional employee regulations, including revisions to clean up language, enhancements to compensation policies, and expanded professional certification incentives. And item 3E is the agreement with Urban Conservation Corps of the Inland Empire, also known as UCCIE, to provide field services at the Esperanza Park project. And that concludes the consent agenda.
Thank you so much. Are there any members of the public who wish to comment on any of those items?
I do not have any request to speak forms for any of the items on the consent agenda, but if you're a member of the public and you wish to provide public comment, please raise your hand. And I don't see any hands raised.
Thank you. Are there any comments from council?
Move approval of the consent agenda.
Here we go.
I'm sorry, I did not hear who made the second.
Councilmember Gutierrez.
Thank you, Councilmember Gutierrez. So we have a motion by Councilmember Gregory and a second by Councilmember Gutierrez. Please vote. Are you having technical issues over there, Councilmember Carnevale?
I'm not getting anything that says waiting.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and do a roll call vote,
Okay.
if that's okay. Councilmember Carnevale?
Aye.
Councilmember Lamb?
Yes.
Councilmember Gutierrez?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Gregory?
Yes.
Mayor Ross?
Yes.
And the motion carries all ayes.
Thank you. So,
Something funky?
no, we do have to do the legislative action, huh? Yeah? Okay, all right. So we are going to award a tax order to Advantic Consulting Engineering for design of the Cathedral Canyon Drive, Canyon Shores Drive traffic signal project. Hello, Mr. Lee.
Thank you, Mayor. Andrew Lee is here to present that item, and I will just let him go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, City Council members. Tonight I'll be presenting the recommendation to authorize a task order for the design of the Cathedral Canyon Shores traffic signal project. So starting with the project location, the intersection of Cathedral Canyon Drive and Canyon Shores Drive is located just north of the Ophelia Bringus Bridge, excuse me, outlined in red on this slide. In June of last year, the Coachella Valley Association of Governments completed all right-of-way acquisitions necessary to start the CV Link construction, which is currently underway. In December of 2024, City Council approved Amendment Number 2 to the reimbursement between CVAG and the city, and this provided a 75-25% cost sharing for the design and construction of the project being discussed tonight. And Cathedral City will be the lead agency for this project. So shown on this slide at the project location is the CV Link outlined in blue. As you'll see, the CV Link approaches Cathedral Canyon from, thank you, from the west side, northwest side, and the CV Link will continue on the east side of the Ophelia Bringus Bridge, heading south, and at the south end of the bridge, the CV Link will continue east towards Date Palm. So the configuration that we'll be starting the design with is a diagonal, or also known as the scramble crossing. This will allow pedestrians to travel from the northwest corner of the intersection directly to the southwest. A couple examples that exist today in California, one in San Diego and one in Los Angeles. So city staff solicited proposals from the city's list of on-call traffic engineering consultants from December 12th, 2024 to January 3rd, 2025, and proposals were received from all 3 on-call traffic engineering consultants. The proposals were reviewed and evaluated by the engineering staff, and Advantech Consulting Engineers was determined to be the most qualified and cost-effective. Their cost proposal is in line with industry rates for a design of a traffic signal project. Advantech will provide the following services. They'll start with preliminary research, including the warrant analysis, surveying. They'll also provide the plan specifications and estimates, and provide bidding assistance and construction support, as well as coordination with any utility companies. Shown on this slide is the fiscal impact for the project. As you can see, the city's portion will be the 25% in the amount of $13,697. CVAG will cover the other 75%, and the total project cost for design will be $54,790. This agenda item aligns with Goal B, community investments. And city staff recommends the City Council authorize a task order to Advantech Consulting Engineers in the amount of $49,805, as well as approve a 10% contingency, bringing the total design encumbrance to $54,790, and authorize the city engineer to execute the task order. And with that, I will hand it back to you, Mayor.
Thank you so very much. May we have a staff report, please, Mr. City Manager? Oh, that was just the whole report. I thought he had something more to say. I'm so sorry. So are there any questions from? I know. Well, here's the only thing I have to add. I would be really nervous at a traffic signal that was called a scramble. You wouldn't know which way to go, you know? You're like the Three Stooges in the middle of the traffic.
Can I ask simply clarifying, just so when you, Andy, I'm Andrew, and when you, excellent presentation, and I like the drawing, and you're showing where the CV link would going either way, and it would cross in the diagonal. But there'll be somebody who theoretically could cross the other diagonal, right? If they were coming, say, southbound, and they were on the east side of Cathedral Canyon on that multi-use path, and they were, say, they wanted to go to the CV link over across, or they wanted to go for some reason onto the westbound sidewalk.
Yeah.
It's gonna cross all 4 corners, correct?
So I know for sure from the northwest to the southwest, you can cross in both directions. Right now, there's not really anything on the southwest corner. And so I'm not sure if we would want.
Well, there's a sidewalk there.
There is a sidewalk.
And then on the east side, there's a multi-use path. You're gonna put a signal. This is all about a signal there, right? So,
yeah.
So they would be able to cross there, would they not?
I believe you're correct, Councilmember Gregory. It'll stop the traffic, the vehicular traffic in all directions.
All directions at one time.
Because a typical scramble, you can go from any of the corners to
Yes.
the other corner in any direction. Yeah, a good example is Palm Canyon at Tahquitz, right? In front of the Starbucks there. If you've ever been there and seen it stops all of the traffic. So I was just assuming, because you did draw the one, and then when you showed the examples of the scrambles, one of them has the X actually drawn in there. So,
Yes.
so it will have the X, right? I mean, they'll be able to go from any corner to any corner.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
All right.
correct.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your presentation and for moving this project forward.
Any other questions? No? No? Thank you so much for your presentation. Super appreciate it. Are there any members of the public who wish to comment on this item?
I don't have any request to speak forms for this item, but if you're a member of the public and you wish to provide public comment, please raise your hand. And I see no hands raised, Mayor.
Do we have a motion from council to approve this staff recommendation?
Move to approve.
Second.
Thank you. Please vote.
Oops, sorry, hold on just a minute.
There we go.
The motion
Thank you.
carries all ayes.
Oh, there's Ernesto's came up. Okay, thank you. I didn't ever see yours come up. And then the next item is to appoint members or member of the City Council to serve on the Zoning Code Updated Steering Committee. May we have a staff report, please?
Good evening again, Mayor and members of City Council. I don't have a formal presentation for you, but I do want to take a moment here to talk about what I think is an exciting opportunity for a member of the council to have more hands-on role with the zoning code update. So I'm pleased to share with you that we have a kickoff tomorrow with Mintier Harnish. This is the consultant that we have awarded the zoning code update contract to back in December. And as part of that contract, we have both a steering committee and a technical advisory committee. That steering committee is intended to be composed of representatives of the Architectural Review Committee, Planning Commission, possibly a member of City Council, together with representatives of the broader community. We haven't selected exactly who would be on that, but we are thinking a member of the Agua Caliente Band of Cahuilla Indians, together with a representative of the Chamber of Commerce, and then leadership staff from Public Works, Engineering, Economic Development, really a group that can assist in compiling a vision for the project, weighing in on key policy issues over the course of the project, and really assisting the consultant and staff in moving this project forward. The steering committee, the technical advisory committee, these are intended to meet 6 times over the course of the project. It is broken up into modules, so the consultant will assist in providing some structure for these discussions. First meeting will be in person, the balance of the meetings will be virtual, and this isn't intended to limit public input and engagement. We will have 3 community meetings, we will have multiple workshops with the Planning Commission and public hearings before the Planning Commission and City Council throughout the project. But this is perhaps a personal invitation and a way for the council to have direct input through the steering committee over the course of the project's development. So with that, staff is inviting and welcoming a member of council to participate on the steering committee, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. Do we have any council members that would like to ask any questions about this? No? Okay. Do we have anybody who would like to serve on the steering committee?
I nominate Ernesto.
I'll do it.
Ernesto. Thank you, Ernesto.
Thank you.
And you report back to us.
So zoning is extra exciting, as was stated earlier. So, but if Ernesto would like someone to join him, I would also be willing to serve on this.
Great. I would love to.
Can you take them both?
We can. Under the council policy, it would mean that this may be an ad hoc committee of the council, so we would be subject to the Brown Act requirements. We can do that. It just means that there's some posting and some additional requirements on staff, but we can do that.
Well, if it's a problem, I don't mind withdrawing either, so whatever you want to do.
Can he be an alternate?
If it's just an ad hoc and we're going to have a limited duration and one specific topic, we don't have to post or comply.
Oh, okay. Well then.
If it's going to be multiple topics or go further than about 6 months, it's probably
This is a 2-year project.
It's a standing committee, then yeah, you'll have to comply with that.
I think Ernesto can represent the council just fine, and then if he decides he's had enough fun and he needs somebody to take his place, then we can bring it back.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I appreciate your volunteerism. And next is discussion of future agenda items. Nor do I. So guess what? Get out of here, we're adjourned. You know what? I am not shy. I'd be happy to tell you if I ever found a difference, and I have not found a difference, at least up until now.
Funny thing was
They sort of out of the video. Thank you. That was fun Sunday.
I love going every year. Yeah, it was super fun. I made $6.
Me too. Yeah, 2 were for me.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Yeah, I don't know what I'd say. 1, 2, 3. Sometimes I